This stock review is for Friday, 2nd of March. Start with composite. Composite opened below this trend line here, which was the bottom for a long time, but we've been drifting below it several times. Only had 2 closes below it, one of them being yesterday, actually 3 now, and the third one being today. This red candle, and now a green candle was not able to close above it. So we've slipped back here. It's coming down from 3,000 for the composite. You can see that this shallower trend line here only goes to this one wick. So some of the others wicks this wick is kind of close to it, but we currently have this uptrend line here that these wicks have been falling off of today, yesterday, and 4 days ago. So we're kind of wedging, squeezing into a top here. We may very well be falling back down. This may be the tip over. Alternately, we could, of course, go sideways in this kind of channel for a period of time, or if we are going to be going up, break plus 3,000 tomorrow, we may very well get our exponential rise. Still up in the air. Markets may still be strong. Check the Dow. Dow failed to maintain 13,000. So after closing 1 day above it 2 days ago, we now have 2 closes below 13,000 and a downtrend on the wicks. As you can see, I don't have to draw that. You can see that downtrend on the wicks. So we may be tipping over. This down candle failure to maintain 13,000 was not a bad candle down yesterday, not by any stretch. So we have not had the exponential rise on the Dow that in the past has been characteristic of how we start a pullback. You can see this here, this pullback here, goes higher. It's going exponential right before it tips over. A new high here, not exactly the same formation there, but you can see the exponential rise here just before crashing, exponential here just before crashing in the midst of these uptrend patterns. We haven't really had that yet, but it looks like there's a little bit of thrust upward. That might be enough. This didn't have quite the exponential rise over here as either, so it doesn't always happen that way. On the first leg, this might be the first leg of this recovery. Kind of messy. Shouldn't have come back down this far if that was the case. So maybe you can consider that. I consider this movement right here to be akin to these movements here. So if you're talking a real recovery like this one back here on the Dow, it did finish with an exponential character and then come back down for a retracement. We haven't had that yet, so perhaps we still need that. And if we could get above 13,000 and stay a bit, we do have some natural double top back here that we could come up and reference. And if we did that very quickly, that would give your exponential final ending character to this rally before you have a 2 week pullback or so. Still not clear. Go to Broadcom for the stocks. These were your controlling trend lines yesterday, and today we opened at both of them right at the cusp, right at the intersection, and just plummeted. You can see that on the 20 pretty well. If you want to look at Broadcom on the 20, here it is. Here were those 2 lines, and coming through like this. And you can see here's the lowest extent for this big day up here, and in the lowest extent here. So those are the 2 lines. You open basically right at both of them and just dump immediately with Broadcom. Reverses that, which is basically a 50% retracement on this movement down from 35.80 up here. Comes back. This whole period down here is about 50% retracement, and then just breaks back upward and zooms. So still below this trend line here, this top one here, and we're kind of in the middle of all of this back and forth, right near the close. So still don't know what it's going to do, but if it were to break above this trend line, that could be very good. Continuing on up, you can see here this really on the 20. The first part of the day was really pretty choppy, tough trading for Broadcom, but the back part of the day was pretty nice. Go here, Broadcom. So this was pretty choppy. There's some neat signals in here, such as not GAN angles, such as this break here, attempt to go higher, failed recovery attempt from the fall right here, breaks this uptrend line here. It's not drawn perfectly, but that's basically right at 37. It's kind of nice. Break right there through it, and the 37 just goes. Comes down for a double bottom, tries to catch some up. But this is essentially a disappointment fast reversal from a failed recovery attempt, and it just extends very nicely. So that could have been caught pretty well. And then you've got this nice little, oh, it will collapse a little bit lower. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Comes back up, cradle, and then there you go. And you've got some trend lines breaking, and it just goes. Pretty good. So as you can see on the 20-day, kind of ambiguous here. You're going to have 37 also controlling here. You still see all this support for these levels here right at the bottom, basically near 37. 38's way up here. So we're, currently below between 37.60, 37.50, and 37. 37 is what we're messing with right now, and this uptrend line, or upper downtrend line. You can also, of course, now, and you need to consider this line, and these now have approximately the same slope, very much more nearly the same slope, wedging this direction. So either one of these trend lines breaking out above or below could be some nice movement for Broadcom. Okay, move on to Netflix. Netflix still channeling in the gap region here. This gap region, but above levels of support before the break downward way back here in October of 11. So once again, this top here is approximately 115. This line really is, these wicks for the past 2 days have actually been about 113.65. So you just need to look at those to determine potential upside for breakouts. Right up here, right about there, 113.65 right there, right on it. For 2 days, here we are. You see that's been referenced a couple times. This was a little bit higher, 114 as a dollar higher. But you can see some of the places it's bumping its head. So for tomorrow, you've got those kinds of lines you can draw and see what comes out of tomorrow's open in its movement. This is a nice movement up in the afternoon. Pretty good. If we get it back above 113, go 114, 115, break out of 115, this thing could go real nicely back up here to 118, 120, these levels. That you can see here, 118, 120. So that's Netflix. It does look pretty good. It looks like a 2 nice green days off of the 50 perhaps. This is pretty good. Not a bad performance today at all. Put a green on top of that, go above the 20 on the daily, go above past couple day highs. You can see those are also referenced back 5 and 6 days ago. Start going above those levels, yeah, you get real nice movement up. SanDisk went up to 51, very nearly, came back down. There was its exponential movement that we talked about, gave it back mid part of the day, ended lower, but did close on this uptrend line established by these wicks, or these tails rather, on the movement upward. And you can see the top of the tails, how we're squeezing into this tip area. So this is still the controlling trend line for the bottom. We went below it today, opened at 50, went below it, tailed off of this trend line, interestingly enough, went back above 50 and rose nicely for another 53 points above 50. So we're moving into that area. Could break and fall if the market's going to be weak, but it could once again just surpass 51 and go. It may be actually going for full gap closure here. Perhaps tomorrow. This is a very nice recovery on this, surprisingly weak day. Did not expect during the day for SanDisk to give this much of it back, but it came back off of that line and has gone higher. So we know the pattern for moving higher for a lot of stocks for the past several months has been to breach a threshold of a downtrend line like this, established back before with either, comes down in gaps, whatever. But anyway, breaches it to the upside again, touches and launches off of it. So that looks to be what SanDisk is doing, going above this uptrend line here. Tomorrow's action would mean a breach of 51 and higher to get above this, like this wick is. But it could do that. I'd say reference, and it closed at its high of the day, which is pretty impressive to the upside. So, looking at SanDisk, that's nice, strong finish. And you can see it's not unreasonable at all to just come right on back up here, close this gap. Maybe it needs to head to 55. It's rejected the downside problem caused by the earnings release. So this is a strong candle back up, or cradle back up. Doesn't need to come up here and challenge these highs here. Very, very well could, and could even go higher, be coming up here to 60. Depends. It's accelerating and could peter out. Don't expect too much from it. It does have some downtrend lines here and some thresholds to break through, but anyway, looks strong for the moment. Could have a nice pop tomorrow if the market's got some strength. And this was a very strong move up by the end of the day. Went with the market, but you see the market was down for the day on the Dow. SanDisk was basically up the whole day. Even though it was messy, it was very strong. There was a continuous uptrend the entire day. So there's your controlling trend lines for SanDisk tomorrow, wedging in the tip, but still has the potential to fulfill and blast past 51. X did not continue to fall, sort of as predicted, kind of like back here. This big candle down didn't result in one stacking on top of it. This wasn't as bad as it definitely could have been. Same type of deal, had a gap up today. The market had a little bit of upside strength, is not ready to collapse as predicted. I did predict last night that it would not be the collapse right now. The collapse was not right now. So the pullback. This gave it back though after coming up to wick off the major controlling uptrend line. Well, how tidy for X. So here's the 20 down X, and you've got that controlling trend line coming through, basically like this, going through this close here. Came very close to it, actually went above it right at 28, and then gave it back in the afternoon after a break on this uptrend. So that's pretty weak, doesn't look real good. And if you want to go through some of these here, we've maintained this, but we're back at this trend line here. So breaking below this tomorrow, this 2-day bottom we've got, could be really bad, come back down to 27, maybe past 27 to the downside. So you've got 27.50 as a mental threshold, 28 of course being extremely important. We've talked about that. 28 drop below 27.50 to the bottom of this range. Your drop was essentially from 28 down to 27 on the break day. If you're going to go back into the lower portion of that, this recovery could be considered by everyone looking at X to be completely over with, and you just begin to breach to the downside. I do predict some more downside for X, but you have to see. So that's X, and those are the big four. FedEx is kind of interesting. Looks like it may be ready to break above this shallow downtrend top and start moving back above 92 perhaps. Close it just above 91 today, so 91 to 92 could be a nice movement, and even higher. Come back up here to the break level of around 93. Could get that tomorrow with one candle, so you might get $2 on FedEx to the upside tomorrow, which could be really nice. CAT looked like it was going to do a little bit better. I thought it came down after this break, tailed, and started moving back up. I think it ended lower today. It actually bounced off the 20-day moving average and took a real nice movement from here on up here, but did break and fall and came back even lower. It looks like it. So that's an anomalous low there. It looks like the low is actually right at 113 for CAT. So that's pretty. That's once again tidy might be the word. That's pretty tidy. 114 has been a nice obvious boundary for CAT. It's been the most obvious. 115, 114, 113 action seems to be the play we're having now. And this was a double here, and it did recover a bit toward the end of the day. So perhaps it will start to move back up. I don't know, but CAT's moving pretty nicely, giving some decent candles after giving very small candles for a while. So you can make some good money off of that, and did today. Best Buy is looking bad. This may need to come on down to this lower trend line here. This one, it may suffice. A touch off of that may suffice. but it's not looking real healthy. This red candle on the piggyback of this big down candle here. This one was green after this big down candle, so this is in confirmation of the move. The bodies are in relatively the same position. This one opened higher and closed lower. This one opened lower, closed higher, with a much larger wick upward, but then still went down. So this one being a worse candle, how much further down does this go? We need to come back down to 24. Second day in a row failing to maintain 25, which is an important level for Best Buy. Do we come down to 24.50 and bounce back just because that's it's got some support and it's a psychologically clean midpoint, or do we have to come on down here further to this trend line, perhaps 24, breach this? Who knows? The Best Buy does not look good based upon today's movement and could have another big candle tomorrow downside. What else? UTX maintaining strength, maybe ready to break back above 84, go above this trend line here. It wicked above it a bit today. Maybe that could move on up very nicely tomorrow. 84 to 85, that's a nice movement. Perhaps UTX goes. Apple looking rather looking toppy. This could be a double top, open and fall, and we get some retracement on Apple. Maybe it's time. Apple has really had a run, and it's twice flirting with essentially 550. Maybe that's enough in people's minds, and it needs to pull back. If it were to, it could come back substantially and quickly. So definitely to pay attention to this double top level from the past couple days at about 548 and change, 548.65 or so. What else? Google moving up smartly after this cradle, after this movement here and all of this. It's made its decision upward for the time being. Has this double top here with 625. That probably serves as gap closure in most people's minds. So I have to see what Google is going to do about this. Google is it's a stock a lot of people pay attention to, so it's worth paying attention to. It can move a lot on any given day. So, what else? Visa starting to have some actual putting together some candles that are actually really starting to combine to threaten the downside now. You've got this uptrend line, break below that, or wick up to it and start coming back down, reach 116, and I think you would have a pullback in Visa. Visa is at all-time highs and may finally be starting to pull back. And since I have an uptrend line like this, went above it, closed for one day, opened there, tried to go higher, couldn't, fell back below it, and you see this, we're squeezing up into here. Nothing that says it can't go higher, pull off of this and start going back to challenge this. But it, as you can see, is in threat to fall a couple dollars. Come back below 116 perhaps, come back down to 114. Don't know, but it might be good. And Visa tends to trade pretty cleanly during the day, so that could be a good one. I think we'll finish out here with Home Depot. Had a doji today, still striving to go higher. Maybe it breaks out above 48 tomorrow, and if it really goes. I've seen this pattern before. Earnings will generate a pop like this that gives back, but then a very strong trend line is just maintained, and it breaks out above that, and for a couple days at the very least has some very strong candles to the upside. Might get $2 candle on Home Depot in a few days, next week perhaps, maybe tomorrow. It just depends on the open. If we were to gap up to 48, fall slightly, go back above 48, maintain momentum, start making new highs, the market's at all strong or just not completely crushing that could, a gap up with this formation to pass these could be extremely nice for Home Depot. So I'd say Home Depot would be one to watch tomorrow. So at least for the first part of the morning. We don't know how the day is going to end. It is a Friday. Lately the pattern for Fridays has been to make some sort of decision early and then sit out the rest of the day. Although if we are going to be topping, people might want to start considering selling their stuff and taking profit going into the weekend, because they just don't know about Mondays. Mondays may end up with a big gap down. People may be starting to think that now. So we might have a break in that pattern for Friday, but currently past Fridays have been big movement, and then most of the rest of the day is not particularly good. Kind of sits around not willing to make a decision. If that time is over, we'll see it tomorrow, and might get some pullback if the market is higher by that time. Have to see. That's all for tonight. Good luck trading tomorrow.